The station was alive with noise boots dragging across the floor, voices colliding, luggage wheels rattling over uneven tiles. Yet in the middle of it all, she stood motionless. Her dark hair shifted each time the doors sighed open, letting in the sharp bite of October wind. People pushed past her, but she did not move, her gaze fixed on the arrival board, though her eyes were not reading. They were waiting. Her fingers clutched a small suitcase, the leather handle worn soft with years of use. Across its side, a faint scuff traced like a scar. She traced it absent-mindedly with her thumb, the same way a wound is remembered even after it heals. In her other hand, a red scarf dangled loosely, threadbare edges frayed, its weight almost nothing. Still, she held on to it as if it were the only anchor left. Gate 12. A voice crackled through the speakers. The crowd stirred, folding into waves that carried people toward the far end of the hall. She remained, her knuckles whitened against the handle. Beneath the harsh lights, her eyes glistened not with tears, but with something heavier, something restrained. She remembered his watch, the cracked glass face, frozen at 11:47. It had been returned to her in a clear plastic bag, tagged with numbers and cold indifference. She had pressed it against her palm that night until it left a mark. Now, as the scarf brushed her wrist, she felt the echo of that pressure, like time itself pressing back. The overhead speakers coughed again. A child's laughter broke through the shuffle, brief and sharp, before being swallowed by the station's endless rhythm. She shifted her weight, body trembling just slightly. She wasn't sure if it was the cold or the thought of what waited beyond this moment. Her eyes darted across, the crowd faces blurring, footsteps echoing, lives moving forward as though nothing had shattered. She searched, not for a face she knew, but for a sign. The air buzzed with a strange charge, as if the station itself was holding its breath. The scarf slipped lower in her hand, nearly falling. She caught it, her grip tightening. "Not yet," she whispered, her voice almost lost beneath the thunder of a departing train. A man brushed past her shoulder, muttering an apology. She didn't answer. She kept staring at the gates, her pulse drumming in her ears, louder than the announcements, louder than the crowd. Her lips parted as if to speak again, but no words came, only silence, the kind of silence that carries the weight of decisions not yet made, of steps that cannot be undone. The scarf twisted in her hand, the suitcase felt heavier. Somewhere, a whistle blew, and she did not move. The scarf slid across her fingers as if it belonged to someone else. She stared at the fabric, the deep red almost bruised under the station's fluorescent lights. It wasn't just cloth, it was memory stitched into threads. Her father had given it to her when she was 12, a winter morning so cold that her breath came out like smoke. "Wrap it tight, little one. Don't let the cold inside." He had smiled then, that quiet smile he always carried when he wanted to hide his worry. Now, years later, the scarf was the only piece left. His watch had gone to the grave with him, cracked face and all. The scarf remained, fraying at the edges like her patience, like her hope. She twisted it once around her wrist, the fabric rough against her skin, as if binding herself to something she wasn't ready to release. A couple across the hall reunited in a hurried embrace. The woman dropped her bag mid-step, laughing, as the man lifted her into his arms. She turned away quickly, biting down on the inside of her cheek. The suitcase in her hand suddenly felt heavier, filled not just with clothes, but with debts unpaid, nights spent awake staring at ceilings, and questions that never softened with time. Her father used to tell her that strength wasn't loud. It's in how long you can hold yourself together when no one's watching. But lately, she wondered if she'd misunderstood him. Was she holding on or just too afraid to let go? Her gaze swept the station again, unfocused, but caught just briefly on a man standing near the ticket counter. He wasn't rushing like the others. He wasn't distracted by phones or impatient sighs. He stood still, hands in pockets, watching, not staring, but watching. His silence felt deliberate, like he was waiting for her to notice. She looked away, a tremor catching in her chest. She told herself it was nothing, just another passenger. Yet she felt his presence linger, the way shadows stay, even when you turn from the light. Her thumb brushed the suitcase handle again, circling over the old scuff. She remembered when that mark first appeared on a trip with her father to the coast. The bag had slipped from his hand, tumbling down a stone stair. He'd laughed, calling it seasoned now, like it carried stories in its scratches. She wished she could hear that laugh again. Instead, all she had was the hollow rattle of trains leaving without her. Another announcement, another wave of passengers breaking apart and reforming. She gripped the scarf tighter, feeling its threads strain under her pull. The man near the counter shifted, taking a step closer, but stopping short, as though measuring the distance carefully. She hesitated. The scarf slid lower. For the first time, she almost let it fall. Almost her breath caught. A faint, confused smile tugged at her lips, as if she'd remembered something she shouldn't. And then she stopped walking. The station air shifted. A cold draft curled in through the sliding doors, carrying the scent of rain before the first drop had fallen. She felt it against her skin, the kind of chill that seeps into bones when something is about to change. She glanced again. He was closer now, though not enough to seem intrusive. The man stood near a column, head slightly bowed, his shoulders drawn in, as if carrying something unseen. His shoes caught her ice-scuffed leather, the soles uneven, worn down by too many miles walked without rest. He didn't look like a man passing through. He looked like someone who had been searching for too long. Her pulse ticked faster. She wanted to look away, but couldn't. The scarf twisted in her hand. She imagined him as another traveler, with his own grief folded neatly inside a suitcase. But then his hand shifted, reaching briefly into his jacket pocket. She caught a glimpse of faded photograph, edges bent, the image blurred by time. For a second, his thumb pressed against it with the same reverence she felt when clutching her father's scarf. An invisible mirror. His silence echoed her silence. His losses, whatever they were, reflected her own. The speakers coughed out another delay notice. Murmurs rose, frustration filling the air like static. A child began to cry. Somewhere, glass rattled in its frame. As the wind outside picked up, she could feel the storm pressing in, the sky heavy with rain, thunder rolling low like a warning. Her mind wrestled with itself. Leave. Walk to the gate. Forget him. The suitcase tugged at her wrist like an anchor, reminding her of the life she was supposed to continue, the responsibilities she couldn't abandon. Yet something about his stillness called her back, like a magnet refusing to release its hold. She wondered, was this fate? A chance encounter in a city full of strangers, two broken lives colliding by accident? Or was it something darker, a pull crafted by design, a snare waiting for her hesitation? She shifted her scarf higher, wrapping it close, as if fabric could shield her from choices. His gaze lifted for the first time, their eyes locking across the noise and movement. His expression wasn't sharp, wasn't demanding. It was tired, and in that weariness, she saw herself. Her breath hitched, one step forward, and the scarf slipped again, sliding against her palm. The fabric whispered across her skin like a warning. Thunder cracked above the roof. He looked at her, as though he knew. The storm wasn't just outside. Her grip tightened on the suitcase. One foot angled toward the gate, the other stayed rooted to the floor. She couldn't decide, and in that hesitation, the moment split open and finished, uncertain, trembling on the edge of what could not yet be named. The announcement echoed overhead, muffled by static. Final boarding, gate 12. The words broke across the crowd like glass, scattering people into hurried lines and tense movements. She felt it in her chest finality, like the world demanding she move forward. Her hand tightened on the suitcase, but her body did not follow. She took one step toward the gate, her knees weak, the scarf slipping further down her wrist. The leather of the handle bit into her palm, as though reminding her, you have places to go, debts to face, reasons to run. She almost let herself believe it, almost, but then one last look. She turned. He was still there, his presence quiet, yet unshakable, like a shadow stitched into the station floor. Their eyes met again, and for a heartbeat, she forgot the chaos around them. The scarf slipped completely this time, falling soundlessly onto the tiles between them. She froze. Her chest ached as though her ribs were too small for the storm swelling inside. The man stepped forward, not hurried, not hesitant, just steady. He bent, picked up the scarf, and held it carefully, as though it were fragile glass. His fingers brushed the frayed edges, reverent in a way that almost startled her. When he offered it back, his voice was low, nearly drowned by the rush of passengers. Some people carry more than just bags, he said softly. They carry silence. Her breath faltered. The scarf in his hand suddenly felt heavier than the suitcase she dragged along. He wasn't just returning it, he was seeing her. Around them, the station moved on. A woman glanced their way, lips pressed in quiet disapproval. Two men muttered as they brushed past, one shaking his head as if to say she was foolish to linger. Judgment floated in the air, not loud, but sharp enough to sting. She almost reached for the scarf. Almost. Her fingers hovered. trembling in the charged space between them. In his eyes, she thought she saw a map of his own losses, creases and shadows, the weight of something never spoken. For a moment it felt like standing at the edge of a mirror, her own reflection staring back from another life. Her knees threatened to give way. She swallowed hard, forcing herself upright. The speakers announced the gate again, harsher this time, demanding. A child tugged at his mother's coat nearby, whispering, "Why's she just standing there?" The question burned. Her lips parted, but no words came. The scarf lingered in his hand, waiting. Her suitcase pulled at her arm. The crowd pressed forward. The storm outside rattled against the glass, and still she stood, suspended, not taking the scarf, not leaving, just caught in the unbearable space between. The scarf still lingered between them, suspended in his hand. Her hesitation stretched until the station seemed to bend around it. Noise dulled. The world reduced to the fragile thread of cloth. And then, something broke. She reached forward. His fingers brushed hers as he placed it back into her palm, a touch fleeting yet electric. She caught her breath, then noticed the way he lingered on it, almost too long, as though returning not her scarf, but something that once belonged to him. "This," he said quietly, eyes lowering to the worn threads. "It used to be my daughter's." The air thickened. The scarf felt foreign now, burning in her hand. She wanted to protest, to deny it, but the frayed edge, the faded weave, it was possible. A hand-me-down lost, passed through time, until it landed with her. Suddenly, it was no longer just her memory of her father's gift, it was a relic of someone else's grief. Her chest tightened. Whose story does it carry, now his or mine? A lightning flash lit the glass roof above them, thunder following close behind. The storm outside was no longer distant. It was here, rattling the building, as if to remind her there was no safe place left. He slipped a wallet from his pocket, sliding a folded card into view by accident. She saw the name embossed in gold before he tucked it back. Her heart stuttered. It was the company she had applied to last week. Her desperate last chance to climb out of debt. And not just the company, his company. His name was the one stamped at the top of the letterhead she had prayed over. Sleepless at her kitchen table, the scarf between them suddenly felt like a contract. Her father's words returned, echoing differently now. "Strength isn't loud, it's in how long you can hold yourself together when no one's watching." But what if someone was watching? What if that someone was holding the other half of her fate in his hands? Her knees wavered, but there was no walking away now. She realized with startling clarity this moment had already chosen her. The stranger was no longer just a reflection of her silence, but a force that tied her to something larger, unavoidable. The gate announcement blared again, sharp and final. People surged forward, pressing her in. She clutched the scarf, shaking, and stepped out of the line, turning toward him instead. For the first time, she let the suitcase roll behind her freely, wheels clattering like drums of surrender. Her feet carried her past the gate, past the murmurs of judgment, toward a side corridor where the air was dimmer, quieter. She wasn't boarding anymore. She was stepping into something else's room, a decision, a point of no return. The corridor was quieter, shadows pooling where the lights flickered. Rain hammered the glass roof now, each drop echoing her heartbeat. She stopped at the far wall, suitcase at her side, scarf clutched to her chest as though it could hold her together. He followed, not rushing, just steady, like every step was chosen. When he finally stood before her, she noticed how tired his face truly was, the kind of tired that had nothing to do with sleep. "You remind me of her," he said, voice low but firm. His gaze fell on the scarf. "The way you hold on to things, the way you look at the world, as if it already took too much from you." She swallowed hard. The scarf trembled in her hands. "I thought it was mine," she whispered. "I thought my father gave it to me. But maybe I just wanted it to mean something." He shook his head gently. "It does, even if it's been carried by more than one story. Maybe that's why it found you." The suitcase handle dug into her palm as she realized the weight of what he was saying. He wasn't here by accident. Their encounter wasn't just fate. He had chosen to step closer, to watch, to wait. "You're not here for me," she said, her voice cracking. "You're here for her." His silence was answer enough. His eyes softened not with love, but with recognition. She was not the girl he wanted, but the echo of one he lost. Her chest ached, but strangely, the pain brought clarity. The scarf between them no longer felt like hers to keep. Slowly, she lifted it from her wrist and pressed it into his hands. Her voice steadied, almost calm. "Then let it go," she said. "If it belongs to her, it shouldn't keep haunting us both." For a moment, he hesitated. Then his fingers curled around it, holding the red fabric tight. A flash of lightning lit his face, streaked with something close to grief. In that instant, she saw him not as a stranger, but as a man burying his past in front of her. She left the suitcase behind. It sat abandoned against the wall, filled with debts and promises she no longer wanted to drag. Instead, she stepped past him, into the open space where rain streaked down the glass, into the noise of the crowd that no longer frightened her. The station was the same, but she was not. She had entered standing still, clinging to silence. Now she moved forward, empty-handed but lighter, the absence of the suitcase freeing her more than its contents ever had. Behind her, the scarf would remain with him, an object no longer shared, but released as the storm broke fully overhead, thunder swallowing the speakers. She let out a breath that felt like beginning again, because not every stranger you meet is meant to stay, but some leave you changed forever. The rain had thinned by the time she stepped outside. The streets glistened with broken reflections, neon lights trembling in shallow puddles, strangers hurrying under umbrellas. She walked without one, letting the cool drops brush her hair, her face, her skin. It didn't feel heavy anymore. It felt cleansing, like the world insisting on a quiet rebirth. Her suitcase was gone. She had left it in the corridor without turning back, and the absence felt startlingly light. For the first time in months, her body didn't bend beneath its weight. She carried only herself now. She wandered through the city, slower than the crowd, her hands empty. Each step was deliberate, a rhythm returning to her limbs. She caught the faint scent of roasted chestnuts from a street cart, the distant echo of a violinist under an awning. Life pulsed on, indifferent yet beautiful. Later, in the quiet of her room, she placed her palm against the empty space on her desk where the suitcase might have sat. Nothing was there, and yet the emptiness itself spoke louder than objects ever could. She opened a drawer and slid a folded piece of paper. Inside, a job listing she once pinned her hopes on. She didn't know if she would still chase it, or if another path waited, but she kept it safe, under the soft glow of the desk lamp. The scarf was not with her. She thought of it only once, in the stillness before sleep, and the thought came without ache. She pictured it resting in his hands, perhaps tucked away in some drawer of his own, no longer haunting but quietly remembered. Her father's words came back, not as burden but as comfort. Strength isn't loud. It's in how long you can hold yourself together when no one's watching. She whispered them aloud, then added softly, sometimes love is not romance, it's recognition. The night hummed outside her window, the storm finally gone, the air rinsed clean. She lay down and let her eyes close, not with exhaustion, but with peace. There was no clear ending, no perfect resolution waiting for her, only the fragile certainty that she had stepped through something she couldn't undo. Maybe that was enough. Not every story ends with belonging. Some end with release. And perhaps the truest endings are not endings at all, but doorways disguised as silence.